They wanted to connect, but yeah, we were going to get into, it's the septic finger system is on the west side of their house, where we would get into it with construction.
And it's just a half acre, if I recall.
It's a half-acre lot.
So
Yeah.
they really don't have any other option. And it is incumbent upon us, if we do annex it in, to give it a designated zoning. So the staff's recommendation was to designate it what it was before when it was in the buffer.
Yeah, they've been very cooperative and signed all the documents. We offered to come run it through the process for them, and they took us up on that offer.
Okay, I think you might need to tell us what we need to make a motion on, because we're talking about changing zoning and annexing at the same time, and I don't think that was part of it, was it?
It
Yeah.
was. It was.
It's actually 2 items on the agenda.
Okay.
The rezoning is the next item.
Okay, gotcha.
So on this particular item, we do need the public hearing on the annexation.
So that's what we'll do. We will open this up for public hearing on the annexation to what Trent just described. Anybody want to say anything? We will close. Krista, did you raise your hand? We will close the public hearing at this time, so.
I would just remind the council, we do not offer or give sewer services to people who do not come into the city. So that's why they were voluntarily coming into the city, so they can connect to our sewer.
So also before you on this particular case is the resolution for the fiscal plan, which has been provided in your packet for you. So we do need official action on adopting that fiscal plan. The consideration for the final action of the annexation, which will be next meeting, cannot proceed without the approval of the fiscal plan, as outlined by Indiana Code.
And if you desire favorably for the fiscal plan, Mr. Taylor will also need to sign this.
Correct. So I think Joanna's request is to approve Resolution 2314, adopting the fiscal plan. The purpose of a fiscal plan is to make sure that if a city brings a property into their jurisdiction, they have made a finding that they have the adequate infrastructure to support that property, which would be sewers, roads, those types of things. So
Roundabout.
that's correct. That's what a fiscal plan tells us, is that we've looked at it, Joanna's looked at it, and yes, we can take this into our inventory and properly service it as we should.
And this one needs to be passed tonight, and then we come back next week for the final approval of 2023-09, the annexation.
Next meeting, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So I move to approve Resolution 2023-14 and allow Vice President Sean Taylor to sign on behalf of Ken Austin.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will go to item number 2, approval of ordinance 2023-10, rezoning, to be known as the Phelps rezoning, public hearing. So we will open this up for public hearing now. Does anyone want to make any comments? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And
Then
this
I
one
would-
is introduction only, correct?
This is public hearing, so because it only has 2 hearings versus the annexation have 3 hearings, I am requesting that this be tabled to the next city council meeting for official action. And then also did want to note again that the effective date of this rezoning is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past due to the relinquishment of the buffer zone. Technically, we do not have jurisdiction to zone the property until it is effective. This property is in the Needham Fire Protection District, therefore, once adopted, should that occur, it would not take effect until the second January 1 following the adoption, which would be January 1st of 2025. So there is language in the rezoning ordinance, should it be approved, that it would become effective at the same date as the companion annexation.
And the property owners are aware of this, and we are going to, if you're so inclined to adopt everything, go ahead and allow them to hook onto our sewer, understanding that they will be. It just won't be effective until 2025.
Correct.
So we need a formal motion to table the request for the rezoning. You don't want to rezone something that you don't have annexed yet. I don't know why I keep hitting this.
And it's October 2nd
Okay,
meeting.
so table it to the October 2nd meeting.
I move to table ordinance 2023-10 until our next council meeting on October 2nd.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you.
We will go on to the next item. Public hearing to request applying for membership in the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority and adopting the preliminary strategic plan. Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, good evening. This is the second part of the request that I brought before you in the first reading of the ordinance at your last meeting. This is to request approval of the City of Franklin becoming a member of the Central Indiana Regional Development Authority. The purpose behind this authority is to work regionally to establish and to help the region get different grants, different opportunities throughout state and federal dollars, but most specifically, it is for the READY grant program that Governor Holcomb rolled out about 3 weeks ago. Last year, we were able to participate, and we received almost $1 million in grant fees. This year, the state has changed that slightly and says that you must be a member of a regional development authority. All the grant funds will be running through them, and in order for any community to be eligible, they must be a member. So that is the most urgent reason why we are coming before you tonight with this request. We also know that through the Development Authority, we're going to be able to apply for some other federal grants and other things that ordinarily we would not be eligible to apply for due to the size, due to our location, different things like that. So it's going to open us up for a number of different opportunities. We had our first reading of the ordinance at your last meeting, and tonight I am requesting a public hearing and then a second reading for this ordinance, and then also approval of the resolution to adopt their preliminary strategic plan, which is also part of the requirements for READY.
So again, the order is ordinance, public hearing, adoption of the ordinance, then passing of the resolution, which we tabled at the last meeting because you can't adopt a resolution to adopt bylaws until you become a member. So that's why we tabled it, much like we did with Joanna's request.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to open it up for public hearing. If there's any questions for Dana or anybody up here, feel free. Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing.
And now I'd like to request a vote on the ordinance.
Move to
Move to approve ordinance 23-11.
second.
We have a motion and a second on ordinance 23-11. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you. And finally, I have Resolution 23-15 before you, which is the preliminary strategic plan and the bylaws of the RDA. Requesting approval, please.
Move to approve Resolution 23-15.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for resolution 23-15. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
We will go on to new business.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second to read new business title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 1, introduction of budgetary ordinance 23-14 to appropriate $5 million for the Active Adult Center project. And I brought Jeff Peters, who's our financial advisor for the city of Franklin, to come. I've made, I have proposed that we can cash flow this and not have to bond for it, and Jeff is here to explain how we can do that. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. As you've been conservative over the last few years going through the pandemic, your general fund has accumulated additional cash over the last 3 years. From an overall perspective, what you try and do and what we try and do strategically with the fiscal plan is make sure that you are at least a minimum 30% operating balance of reserve cash to your operating expenditures. For the general fund by itself, even if you're to cash flow this with a $5 million expenditure of one time, still looking into the future a couple years, I took into account the budget that you have up for 2024, along with the new income tax receipts that we've seen. You would still be, I would say, north of a 40% amount of operating cash just in the general fund. That does not account for other funds that you've put aside in the rainy day fund as well. So I feel confident that we can tell you spending this in lieu of bonds is not going to be a problem to cash flow. You certainly have the ability to bond any projects that you want, as well as this one. But this is something you can safely cash flow with your general fund and not have any problems going into the future that we foresee. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Can I start with just a couple comments here? So Jeff and I have been talking for a year or so, a couple years, on some other projects that we want to do, and one of them is we have a sewer plant expansion that we want to do. We have a youth sports facility that we want to work on, and those will probably require bonding. This project here will not require the bonding, and that's why, talking with Jeff, that I felt like this was the best way for us to go. And then down the road, how we could possibly bond the other ones. And Jeff, could you elaborate on that just a little bit, on what we talked about with
Yeah,
our east
one of
side?
the things that we've looked at, particularly through the redevelopment commission, is identifying those projects and developments as they occur throughout the city, particularly those east of 65, and to capture that revenue as it produces. Each time you see one of those 1 million square foot buildings go in, once you get the tax abatement to roll off of that, the cash flow from those is about $1.5 million a year in taxes. So it is a generator into the future. Now, in order to get those here rather than other places, you've had to give abatement, which is common. But as that rolls off, you'll be able to use that to cash flow what I think will be whatever improvements you need to the sewer plant itself, as well as the other infrastructure for that area.
Because we have not raised taxes, we've raised our assessed value, right?
You've raised you've raised assessed value, but
get-
also in those areas, you are capturing that assessed value and the revenue flow by itself just into the redevelopment commission. It's not coming back to the city, it's not going to the county or the township. You're keeping it for the objectives of the redevelopment commission. And one of those objectives is going to be maintaining the infrastructure out there, including a sewer plant that will service all that facility or all that geography.
Mr. Peters, at the last meeting, I think I told council, and I want to make sure that I was accurate, that some of the projects that we had intended to do and kind of were putting in our savings account, when APRA came along, we've now been able to use that money, which we did not know we were going to get, ARPA funds, and use those. And so now some of this that we thought we might have, we can use for this adult active center. Is that a fair assessment of our financial condition?
You did get a considerable amount of ARPA money that you've undertaken other projects with, yes, but we didn't specifically have those designed or allocated at that point in time. But certainly that's more money that you have available, which
That we may
frees
not
up
have
other monies.
thought we were going to have. Unfortunately, we had it because of COVID.
Correct.
So while Jeff is here, I would encourage the city council to ask Jeff any question that you may have, so, with finances. I know I get to talk to him on the phone every once in a while and wear him out with the same questions, so. Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff.
Hey, thank you.
So the ask is to set the $5 million apart or aside for the Active Adult Center, and we did the presentation on it last week, which it wasn't our last meeting, which isn't totally tweaked all the way. Chip, is he left?
No.
Chip, are we 99%?
Yeah, we've met twice since even the last council meeting, even tweaked it stuff even more, so we are, I think that's accurate now. We've added a door here and there, those are the kind of things we have allowed. Where we're gonna put the IT infrastructure and that kind of stuff, I don't think you care about.
And this is introduction of the budgetary ordinance, so it'll be set for public hearing at the next meeting.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And I know that Josh had a good point the last meeting about being used for a shelter, and that's something we talked about, adding the generator to
Okay,
that, so.
great.
An emergency type of shelter.
Yeah, correct. So anyway, that's introduction for the budgetary ordinance tonight, and thank you for coming, Jeff. Next item, request waiver of noncompliance for Form 322 tax abatement, Pure Development, Community Development Specialist, Dana Monson.
Yes, good evening again. A little bit of information so that you'll understand what we're talking about. When a building is completed or is built here in Johnson County, the assessor's office goes out, they do an assessment on that building, they come back with the official number that it has been assessed for, they send the taxpayer a Form 11. If you have a tax abatement on that building, that Form 11 triggers a requirement by the state that you complete what is called Form 322. This Form 322, when it is submitted to the county, says we're ready to start the first year of the abatement. So the abatement is ready to begin. This is typically done in May. That's generally when the companies receive these, and this is no different for Pure Development. Mr. Ian Nicolini is here. There he is. Ian Nicolini is here tonight with Pure Development, should you have any questions about this. But essentially, Pure Development, which owns the building on 2280 McLean Drive, which is right on the corner of Jim Black Road and McLean. When they received their Form 11, when it was assessed as normal, they received their Form 11, they had a change in personnel at about the exact same time that this happened. Unfortunately, internally, there was, as things sometimes happen, a bit of a crossover, and the Form 11 never got to the correct person. Mr. Nicolini, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that, but kind of had an error there. So this form was not submitted on time. They did not do the Form 322. The county then notified me that that was not completed, and as long as it is not completed, we cannot have the abatement, so they would lose their first year of the abatement. I then contacted Pure Development. They immediately told me, figured out what happened. They sent me the corrected Form 322 and have submitted everything. And they have, do you want to talk, you put some new process in place, so I'll let you go ahead and just kind of.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As your team always does, they nailed it there, summarized it quite well. At Pure Development, we had a treasurer position get vacated right as the mail was coming in for this filing. It was an oversight on our end. We now have 2 people responsible for making sure all these filings are done in place. We develop from coast to coast, and this is the first time we've ever had this happen, so bit of a wake-up call for us. But we appreciate all the help from your team, from the administration, and happy to answer any questions you all have. There's a ton of interest in the building. The only other point I'll add is that this, should you consider the waiver this evening, this actually keeps the abatement on schedule when the first year of abatement would have been in 2024. So there's no impact on the financials or the tax flow from the project. Happy to answer any questions you all have otherwise.
Just a comment to clarify, there's no money being written back at this time. And the reason I clarify that, we had a company one time that missed, and they were so far out that they would have had to get a refund, and they got denied because we didn't feel like we should be refunding the business. So just want to clarify that one.
Right, yeah, that is why we've started working, but Chris and I have started working very closely with the county, trying to make sure that we stay on top of things. So we've asked them to send us copies of the Forms 11s, of the 322s, just so we know what's going on and being aware, trying to preempt any of those problems, because we absolutely do not want to put the city in a position where they're having to pay funds back for whatever reason. That is something we don't want to do. Mr. Taylor is on the EDC. Sir, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about this
I think you
one.
covered all of it. I mean, it was one of those that slip up, and so we kind of approved it to slap on the wrist this time.
And this one can be approved tonight, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
Move to approve resolution 23-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item, request waiver of noncompliance for Form 322 tax abatement legacy investing. Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, again. This one is pretty close to being the same thing, but just slightly different. As I said, when the county goes out and the assessor does an assessment on a building, Johnson County often, and it's becoming more and more often, will do what is called a partial assessment. So they go out and they assess a building, and it might be 70% completed or 80% completed. They will go ahead and do the assessment. They will send out the Form 11, which requires the 322. All of that is the same. This happened last year with Legacy Investing. This is the former GDI building that is located on Forest Drive. It is currently a Target Return Center, which is the company that is in there now. It's about a 1 million square foot building. Last year, they actually had a situation where Legacy was purchasing the building from GDI. The purchase took place and the closing date was within 3 days of the date that they received the Form 11. It was a little complicated then, and each thought the other had taken care of it. They did not. So the same thing last year. They came before the EDC, they requested this waiver, and they received it. This year, they had been assessed at 80%. The final 20% of that building, which was completed, came out. They received a new assessment. So the assessor's office sent a Form 11 for that increase in assessed value. I'm getting that right, Ms. Gregg, correct?
Yeah.
Increase in assessed value.
The other 20%.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes, ma'am. And that should have then triggered them filing their 322. Still not sure exactly what happened. They told us that they did submit a Form 322. The county never received a Form 322. Not sure where it got lost in the mail. Something happened. So they came again before the EDC and requested a second year for the waiver for the remaining 20%. The first 80% is in its abatement. It's moving just as normally. This the 20% now, the first 80% is going normally. This 20% would, if you approve this, will start next year as its first year, and it will be running concurrently with the other, and it'll just be ending a year later because it will still receive the full 10 years. That's why we have to do that this way. Mr. Nate Brooks is Legacy's representative. He is in Washington and could not get back here in time tonight, so he apologizes. He's not able to be here. That is basically the situation with this. Again, Mr. Taylor, I
Yeah,
turn it
they
over to you,
came
sir.
for us and just basically said that it got lost in the mail somewhere, and so, I mean, it's one of those that we have to kind of believe them and push forward here and give them a slap on the wrist as well.
The dog didn't eat the homework,
Dog didn't
too?
need to, this one was lost in the mail. Might have been a tornado, I
So
don't
will
know.
strike three be you're out?
Strike three, you're out.
But if I'm understanding it from the way that it's been described to me, so the year 11 will only be the tax abatement on the 20% that was
Yes,
the
ma'am.
later.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So it'll kind of merge them up for the next few years anyway.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we can act on this one tonight as well.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Make a motion to move for the approval of the Resolution 23-17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Tax abatement request, NSK Corporation Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, so I'm here before you tonight with a new abatement request from NSK Corporation. We all know NSK very well. They have been a very long-term partner with the city, long-term employer here in the city. They are, if you will recall, last year, they were doing quite a bit of additional work. They were adding some lines, they were adding some building space, making some major upgrades to their building. This year, they have come back and they are actually adding some more equipment. They're adding $14,900,000 worth of equipment. Basically, they're going to be making their operations a little bit more efficient, making some things work a little bit quicker and more in line with the things that they need to be doing. As a part of this, they did come before the EDC. They requested a 10-year abatement with a 5% economic development fee for this. The EDC did review this. They do not have any jobs attached to this. Because of that reason, the EDC did recommend a 7-year abatement. Primarily, as I said, it was because of the jobs. We normally don't always have a 10-year abatement with those jobs. To help you understand the project a little bit better and understand what's going on, Mr. Kyle Steens, the plant manager, is here, and Kyle would like to come up and just tell you a little bit about the project. A little bit more clear than I can make it, for sure. I don't understand all that.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you to the council for allowing me the opportunity. I appreciate the work of the EDC and the 7-year abatement request. This particular project is a new investment. It's a new product line for our division. It's a taper hub bearing. It's new technology to NSK. This particular investment has been very hard fought to earn the opportunity to place this investment in Franklin. We had numerous choices across our global footprint on where this could be, also inside of NSK Americas. So I've been making this argument for a couple of years, and we're kind of at the very end here. And I'd like to be able to report back that the community pledges its full support behind this investment. That's my request, to ask this council to approve a 10-year abatement instead of a 7-year, so we can report back that we can give, the community gives the full support that can be offered, as we're working very hard to support the community. In many ways, we presented to the EDC the numerous things that we do, our philanthropic activities and board memberships and so forth. And we're going to continue those things regardless, as you would expect, and we're going to continue to fight and make our argument to our headquarters for this particular business. The jobs, this new investment allows us to maintain our headcount as what we reported going back a year or so ago. If we did not have this investment coming into Franklin, our headcount would indeed reduce. One of our main product lines, it's an older product line, one of the original product lines placed in the building 30 years ago, has more quickly declined than what was earlier anticipated. So our headcount would be reducing without this investment. By landing this investment, our headcount maintains. And as you know, the work that we do, we're highly automated, and we're working to be highly efficient. It's the automotive business, that's what we have to do. And thus, at the same time, we've all struggled with staffing, and that was one of the counterpoints back from our headquarters was, can we staff it? And I fought long and hard that yes, we can staff it through our work with workforce development activities as well. We're trying to do our part in making sure we develop the workforce and so that we can provide the staffing to run the operation well and be able to be very sustainable for our future.
Without giving away a trade secret, what does $1 million piece of equipment going to allow you to do? Build something more?
Yeah, so we make wheel bearings. And so we will be installing two new lines. These lines will have a very long life. The wheel bearings that we produce today, we've been running some of these lines more than 20 years. The lines we're taking out to put the new ones in are almost 30 years old. So these lines that are going in will be here for 20 years plus. Providing value to our plant, to our community in many different ways. And so this is a new product type. This is not something that NSK has been making in the past. New market for us.
And the council has the ability to do whatever you feel right to do, so.
Mr. Taylor was at the
Yeah.
EDC meeting, sir. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
I would say we also, one of the things we also considered is we just did a 10-year abatement as well. Can you expand on that, Dana? I don't remember the numbers.
We did. They had almost $20 million in real property and $7 million in personal from last year, give or take. Something about that. Last year, they also did increase their number of jobs. Right now, they're at 229 employees. Part of that increase in employees that they had were based on the abatement from last year. They did their first CF1, and they were compliant. They were following in line with where they were supposed to be from their previous abatements. They've actually had about 3 other abatements. They've always been in compliance. We have never had an issue with them not being in compliance.
Dana, refresh my recollection, they're in an ERA,
Yes, ma'am.
so we don't need to
Yes, ma'am.
adopt. We can act on it now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So let me just clarify one thing. And I know you saw that from the mayor's office or from the staff, we recommended 5. The reason we recommended 5, because we're trying to be consistent with what other investments into the city. And that's what the EDC recognized, and the EDC recognized that, okay, we do appreciate NSK, which I certainly do, you know that, we've had many conversations, but we're just trying to stay consistent with the amount of investment from other companies on where they're at, and don't pick and choose, well, you're my favorite one, so we need to do this. That's why we come up to the numbers that we come up with, so just so you know that. And the council does have the ability to do whatever
Yeah,
you wish to
the
do.
mayor's always had it at 5 years, and we had some discussion. We thought to, since they are great standing with city and have, you know, great jobs for our city, we push it to 7.
So with all that being said, I'll be quiet, and the city council can do as they choose. How's that?
So yeah, I would move to approve budgetary resolution 23-18 for NSK with a 7-year abatement
And a 5% economic
and a
development.
5% economic development fee.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to the next item. Tax abatement request, Rapid Prototype and Engineering Community Development Specialist Dana Monson.
Yes, still me. This is a fun project. This is with Rapid Prototyping and Engineering. This is a company that came to us in 2018. They were a startup, actually had an office in Edinburgh, ran out of space, came up here, purchased a building, and then built a new building as well out on 1400 Commerce Drive. As companies do, they have become very successful. They have continued to grow. They now have 2 buildings, and they need to add on because they need some storage space, which will open them up actually for a new opportunity in their facility as well. So they're pretty excited about that. They are going to add $900,000 in real property improvements, and they are also agreeable to the 2% economic development fee. Mr. Will Harvey and Casey Myers are here tonight with the company, so if you gentlemen would like to come up, just give them a overview of what you guys are doing.
Hello, I'm Will Harvey. This is my business partner, Casey. So what the spaces allow us to do is kind of plan for some future growth. So it's about 60% more manufacturing space for us. It'll also open up some space we have in our south building. Our intention is to lease that out as flex space, so hopefully attract some other folks to Franklin. But the addition to our building is that first is going to be storage, because we don't really have a set plan yet. But what this does is allow us to kind of start thinking through what we want to do next with our company and you know, purchase more equipment and et cetera.
Yeah, we didn't agree to add any jobs right now. We struggle with the same thing everybody else struggles with, finding experienced people. So with us, it's kind of, we can't wait for opportunity. We have to kind of add the space and then go out and find the work for it. So that's kind of why our request didn't involve adding any jobs right now, so.
Are you,
That question.
are you at liberty to talk about the other part of the project? Feel good about that, or?
We can, if
Yep.
you guys like.
If you don't mind, I think it's good information for council to hear.
So,
They have 2 buildings. They have 2 buildings on their property.
yeah, so we have 2 buildings. The south building has about 7,500 square feet in it that Casey and I are currently using for storage, but it's across the parking lot. So, you know, driving fork truck traffic across the parking lot and people, that's not really the most efficient way to do business. So that 7,500 square feet, we had somebody approach us who is wanting to basically put together an indoor sports training facility. So his intention is to use that 7,500 square feet, actually put AstroTurf, I don't think they call it AstroTurf anymore, but turf down in that building, primarily for soccer training. But his intention is, once he kind of gets established, to open it up for any sport, youth sport that, you know, uses turf, football, baseball, you know, all those, lacrosse, basically to get utilization up on the facility. So his intention is, his focus, I guess, is soccer. That's his background. His name's Trevor Perry, by the way. His focus is soccer, but he's going to invite, other folks from the community to use his facility. I'm sure he'll sublease the space out, for other kind of youth athletic development.
And I can add, I think that he's working with the planning department on a soccer field with nets and keep the ball in and all that stuff, so.
Yeah, there's some zoning stuff that has to happen to make the building suitable for, having kids and them running around kicking balls all over the place. And then we have a large field to the west of our south building. So the intention is to use the topsoil we remove for our building to actually develop a playing field, a smaller playing field for, youth sports, soccer, whatever comes along.
Okay, what's next steps, Dana? Thank you, guys.
So they did come before the EDC. They did request a 7-year abatement. The EDC did hear their case, and they do recommend a 5-year abatement. Again, there are no jobs attached to this. The investment is, as I said, $900,000. They are amenable to the 2% economic development fee. They're another company that I never worry about. They always have their CF1s in. They've always been compliant. They've always met every deadline, everything that we've needed to do. They've been very good partners to work with. Mr. Taylor, I don't know if you have anything for.
Yeah, we wanted to, they are a great business again for the city. We wanted to help them grow, and also the potential for another business to come into the city was, very intriguing. So, we did back it back to 5 years from 7, just because there is no jobs at this time, and I know they could come back at another time once they get machines in there and other things to ask for another abatement at that time. So, but we thought 5 was a good solution going forward.
They do have 2 other current abatements as well. And as I said, they've always been compliant with those.
And we can do this tonight as well.
Yes, it's the ERA too.
Yes, ma'am.
Move to approve Resolution 23-19 with the 2% economic fee
And the
Second.
on a 5-year abatement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, request approval of budgetary resolution 23-07, transfer to Law Police Merit Fund in the amount of $6,000. City Attorney Lynn Gray, and we can do this one tonight as well.
Yes, you can, sir. It's a resolution. As you are all aware, we have a separate law department within the city, much like we have parks departments, sewer department, so on and so forth. And while I represent the majority of the boards, we do have other attorneys that represent RDC, EDC, police merit, fire merit, and the police and fire merit have had some additional meetings that they don't typically have. As you know, we've gone on the lateral transfer things. They've spent a lot of time in a lot of different meetings. So Clerk Treasurer's Office called me, and with the last invoices to Mr. Barrett and Mr. Admire, one does police merit and the other does fire merit, there were no longer any money in their accounts. So I went over and looked at my accounts, and I believe, because I do counsel, I do telecommunications, and obviously I do the police and procedures, that I could move money out of my account, or my line items, put them over into the police merit and take care of them. So that's what I propose to do, and it's ready for your action. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. No new money, just moving it from my area to their area.
Move to approve Resolution 23-07.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item, introduction of budgetary ordinance 23-13, additional appropriation to the police pension payroll and police pension dependent fund. Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes, and Jane, this is an ordinance, so this is introduction only.
Correct.
Yep.
This is new money.
Well, 6.5 years, I'm starting to figure this out.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll change it on you.
attention in my department, my office, that, when we did the budget last year, every year the pension people tell us how much, what the increase is for our pensioners. And we had already done and completed and approved our budget, and we figured it at 18%. And 5 weeks after we approved it, it came back that they wanted 19.1%. So the $33,000 is what we were short in our pension that we need, so we'll be taking that from the general fund. And also too then, we also have dependents, which are widows, basically, and we were short 1,300 yet. So I need that approved, please.
And Jane, if I might add, because I learned this from working with Jane, the state with the pension funds they have actuaries and everything, and they look at the numbers and the amounts, and they give us how much based upon our employees and their life expectancies and their actuary numbers, how much we should be putting into the pension. So when Jane uses the term short, there's no money missing. The money was all there. It's just they give us, and sometimes they're not giving us that number before budget time. They come up later and say, you need to true it up by bringing this additional money. And so it's kind of something that we are mandated to do since we participate in the PERF.
And with that being said, you're probably thinking, because I would be thinking this, did we fix it in the budget this year?
To the best of our ability.
Yeah, we don't know.
have
we
not.
did.
They'll mandate it. I mean, it's so just dependent upon life expectancies and interest rates, and, I mean, they have the actuaries up there figuring out statewide, how much money do we need in retirement funds to pay, and so you don't know. You use your best estimate, and fortunately, in a situation that you can true it up when you need to, when they tell you what the actual number is.
So that was introduction, that has been introduced, and there isn't any other business, so we will go on to council member comments. Josh?
Nothing tonight.
Ann?
Nothing, thank you.
Sean?
Nothing, sir.
Irene?
Not for me, thank you.
Jennifer?
Nope.
Cam? Come on, you gotta pull the mic down and introduce.
Okay.
Yeah,
Introduce myself.
and the,
And then, okay. Hi, I'm Cami Quiggins. I'm a senior at Franklin, and I'm a representative from the Franklin Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. I'm joined by senior Maya Alvey, senior Lauren Clem, sophomore Marnie Moore, and then our vice president in the back, Noah Woods, and he's a junior. So for our little update, hold on. I don't have much for you tonight, so I won't be talking for too long. But in terms of our moon tree, it's coming along. We're just waiting on a response, approval from Dr. Clendenning. What else? We're still waiting on a response for our Wi-Fi project. And we're working on a big project, so hopefully we'll have more information on that for our next meeting. But that's about it.
okay, and it's real hard to find the projects and try to put it together, and the Mayor's Youth Council meets for a short period of time, and it's pretty rough, so.
Yeah.
You are, and I had one of the city councilmen ask me a question on how it's going, but you guys have kicked around several ideas, right, of things to do, and you're starting to land on one?
Yeah, we have one idea that we'll probably go forward with, but we're just not ready to announce it yet. We're still working out the details.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you guys for coming tonight, so. Jane, you have anything else? No, sir. Lynn?
I just could note that, given that she looked on her phone and did her report, I could probably learn something from her and get rid of this. So thank you. I've noted that. Thank you.
All right, I don't have anything else to add. I think we're ready to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.